Anxiety is often misunderstood as something that appears out of nowhere, as if it was simply a flaw in the mind or an unfortunate burden you must carry. But if you look deeply, you may realize that anxiety is not random. It is not meaningless. Anxiety is a message, a signal, an alarm that rings when your inner life and your outer life are not aligned. It is your soul rejecting a life that does not feel authentic, a way of living that does not reflect who you truly are. It appears not to punish you but to alert you that something in your environment, your choices or your habits has drifted too far away from your genuine nature. Consider this: whenever you are forced to wear a mask that does not belong to you, whether to satisfy expectations, gain approval or avoid confrontation, your inner being resists. It resists silently at first, giving you small hints of discomfort. But the longer you ignore it, the louder the resistance becomes. That loudness is what many describe as anxiety. It is not simply an enemy to silence, but a compass pointing to the areas of your life that require change. To suppress it without listening is to bury a warning signal while the fire still burns beneath. The modern world often teaches you to run faster, achieve more, and compare yourself endlessly. Yet when you run in a direction that does not match your own essence, you are bound to feel exhaustion and emptiness. Anxiety arises when the life you live is out of harmony with the life you know deep down you should be living. For example, when you work in an environment that demands constant competition while your heart longs for collaboration, or when you surround yourself with people who drain your energy while you crave relationships that uplift you, tension builds within. That tension, unaddressed, crystallizes into restlessness, sleepless nights, and an ongoing unease that many label as anxiety. Anxiety should therefore be treated less like a disease and more like a messenger. A messenger cannot be destroyed by silencing it. The true resolution lies in understanding the message. What is your anxiety trying to tell you? Where is it pointing? Perhaps it is asking you to slow down, to cut ties with what poisons your peace, or to finally begin the path you have been avoiding out of fear. The reason so many feel trapped in their anxious cycles is because they treat the symptom but ignore the cause. You cannot calm your spirit with shallow distractions when your deeper truth is being neglected. Think of a person who forces themselves every day into a routine that does not nourish them. Maybe they take a job purely for status, while their real interests are dismissed as impractical. Every morning their body resists getting out of bed, and every night their mind races with thoughts of what they are missing. Anxiety thrives in this gap between what you do and who you are. The longer the gap, the louder the discomfort. Eventually it can no longer be ignored. This is why people often experience the highest levels of anxiety when they feel the most distant from their true selves. The solution, however, does not always mean abandoning everything overnight. It means creating alignment step by step. Small adjustments, such as changing the way you spend your mornings, reducing the time you give to draining relationships, or allowing yourself to explore a passion without judgment, begin to close the distance between your inner truth and your daily reality. Each step closer reduces the internal resistance, and with that, anxiety begins to fade. It is not magic. It is the natural outcome of living authentically. Another important perspective is to understand that anxiety thrives on resistance. The more you fight it directly, the more you fuel it. If you tell yourself, I must not feel anxious, I must not think these thoughts, the pressure increases. Instead, when you acknowledge it as a guide, you shift your relationship with it. You can ask, why are you here? What are you showing? That simple change of approach transforms anxiety from an enemy into a teacher. A teacher whose lessons are uncomfortable, yes, but also essential for growth. To truly learn from it, you must also be willing to face silence. Many people fill every moment with noise, scrolling, entertainment, constant tasks, because silence brings awareness, and awareness brings discomfort. Yet it is only in silence that you can hear the message behind the anxiety. In stillness, you may notice that your unease grows stronger whenever you think about your work, your social circle, or the way you have been avoiding your real dreams. That recognition is the beginning of transformation. Silence does not create anxiety. It reveals the truth you have buried under distractions. Sometimes anxiety is the result of holding on to identities that no longer fit. People change, yet they cling to who they once were, or who others told them to be. Carrying these outdated versions of yourself feels heavy, and anxiety is the weight pressing you to let go. Think of it like wearing shoes that are too small. No matter how beautiful they look, they will always hurt. The solution is not to numb the pain, but to release what does not fit anymore. The same applies to your life. Anxiety pushes you to release the identities, habits, or people that no longer match your growth. It is also important to understand that comparison fuels the fire of anxiety. When you constantly measure yourself against others, you disconnect from your own path. You begin to live not for yourself, but to chase standards that were never yours. This creates a permanent sense of inadequacy, no matter how much you achieve. Anxiety in this sense is your soul rejecting the false race. It is urging you to stop running in circles defined by others, and start walking a straight path defined by your own values. In a world obsessed with quick fixes, many people seek to escape anxiety with temporary solutions, substances, distractions, or avoidance. But escape only deepens the cycle because the message remains unheard. The only real solution is courage. The courage to face your truth, to change what needs to change, and to accept that authenticity may require discomfort at first. But remember, discomfort from growth is temporary, while discomfort from avoidance is endless. You must also learn to create an environment that supports peace instead of chaos. If your surroundings are filled with clutter, negativity, and endless demands, your inner world reflects that chaos. A simple room can calm the mind more than any complicated remedy. Likewise, surrounding yourself with people who inspire rather than drain will give you a sense of strength that anxiety cannot easily penetrate. Environment matters because your inner state is deeply connected to the space and company you keep. The journey of transforming anxiety into clarity is not about erasing it, but integrating its wisdom. Anxiety is proof that you are alive, sensitive, and aware. It shows that you care about the direction of your life, even if you are not yet on the right track. When you listen carefully, anxiety reveals your deepest values. It tells you what is important to you by showing you where the conflict lies. If you feel anxious about wasting time, it means time matters deeply to you. If you feel anxious in certain relationships, it means you value harmony and authenticity. Each anxiety, when decoded, becomes a mirror reflecting your true self. True freedom comes when you no longer see anxiety as a curse, but as a companion guiding you back to yourself. It reminds you every day that the only life worth living is one that belongs to you. It demands honesty, courage, and persistence, but the reward is invaluable. A life where you wake up without dread, where your actions match your values, and where your peace is no longer dependent on illusions. So the next time you feel anxiety rising within you, pause and listen. Ask yourself what part of your life feels false, forced, or misaligned. Then take even the smallest step toward correcting it. Every step you take toward authenticity weakens the grip of anxiety. Eventually you realize that what once felt like a curse was in fact a guide, a reminder that your soul will never accept a fake life, because it was designed for truth.
That is why anxiety is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter, where you stop pretending, stop running, and start living in a way that reflects who you truly are. When you accept it as a teacher, you transform it from a prison into a compass, pointing you toward the freedom of an authentic life. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is a signal showing you where your life has drifted away from balance, where the steps you take each day do not fully match the rhythm of your inner truth. Many people spend years fearing the feelings that rise inside them, hoping to silence the racing thoughts the restless nights, and the uneasy weight that seems to appear without explanation. Yet the truth is, anxiety does not arrive without cause. It is not here to destroy you but to show you that something in your current way of living no longer fits who you are becoming. When you begin to look at it not as a punishment but as guidance, you shift your entire relationship with what once felt like a heavy burden starts to reveal itself as a compass pointing you back to a more authentic path. Every time you ignore the quiet voice within you, every time you push aside the discomfort that tells you something is off, you are planting the seeds of anxiety. It begins softly, like a whisper, and most people overlook it. They drown it in noise, in busyness, in endless distractions. But the more you resist listening, the louder the signal grows until it becomes impossible to ignore. This is why anxiety feels overwhelming. It is the soul's way of saying you cannot continue like this, you must stop pretending and realign. Instead of treating it like a curse, imagine it as a mirror. That mirror does not lie. It reflects the distance between the life you are living and the life you are meant to live. Think about the moments when anxiety is strongest. Often it comes when you are doing something that contradicts your values or when you are stuck in environments that suffocate your growth. A person who values honesty will always feel restless in a world of lies. A person who longs for creativity will always feel drained in a job that demands blind repetition. A person who craves peace will always feel uneasy, surrounded by conflict. These are not flaws in your character, they are signs of misalignment. And the feeling you label as anxiety is the tension created between your true self and the false roles you have been forced to play. When you begin to treat anxiety as a teacher, your perspective changes. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of, you start asking, what is this trying to show me? That question opens doors. It allows you to notice patterns. Perhaps your anxiety spikes in certain conversations. Perhaps it rises whenever you neglect rest, or whenever you sacrifice your needs to please others. Each pattern you uncover is a clue leading you closer to the truth. Anxiety in this way becomes your guide, pointing to the very areas of life that require courage, change, and attention. But learning from it requires honesty. Many people fear the answers because the answers demand action. To admit that your anxiety is fueled by the job you hate means you must consider leaving it. To accept that your anxiety rises in the presence of certain people means you must question those relationships. To realize that your anxiety comes from denying your own dreams means you must confront your excuses. Facing this truth is uncomfortable, but it is far less painful than living for years in a life that slowly drains you. When you dare to look directly at the signal, you begin to reclaim your power. The transformation is gradual. You don't need to change everything overnight. Small realignments make a big difference. Choosing to speak more honestly, even if only in one conversation. Choosing to dedicate just 30 minutes a day to something that brings you alive. Choosing to step back from one toxic interaction instead of tolerating it endlessly. Each of these choices sends a message back to yourself. I am listening. And when you listen, anxiety softens. It does not need to scream as loudly when it knows you are paying attention. It is also important to understand that fighting anxiety directly often makes it worse. If you tell yourself, I must not feel anxious, I must silence these thoughts, you create more tension. But when you allow yourself to feel it, to breathe into it, to ask it what it is showing you, you turn struggle into dialogue. It is like a teacher knocking at your door. If you keep blocking the door, the knocking grows louder. If you open it, you can finally hear the lesson. And the lesson is always the same. Return to alignment. Return to truth. Return to the life that feels real to you. You can begin to notice how your body and mind respond when you make choices aligned with your truth. There is lightness instead of heaviness, calm instead of tension, clarity instead of confusion. Anxiety fades not because life is suddenly perfect, but because your actions are in harmony with who you are. That harmony creates resilience. It gives you the strength to face challenges without losing yourself, because you are no longer wasting energy pretending to be someone you are not. Every person's authentic path is different. which is why comparing yourself to others only feeds anxiety. The life that calms your soul may not impress the world, and that is perfectly fine. Some will find peace in simplicity, others in ambition, others in service or creativity. The form does not matter. What matters is that it feels true to you. Anxiety reminds you when you are drifting away from that truth, when you are chasing shadows instead of walking your own path. If you trust it, if you let it guide you, it can bring you back. Ultimately, the choice is yours. You can continue to see anxiety as an enemy, something to suppress, avoid, or escape from. Or you can begin to treat it as a wise teacher, one that sometimes speaks harshly, but always in service of your growth. When you embrace it in this way, anxiety no longer defines you. Instead, it becomes a compass, showing you the direction of freedom, clarity, and authenticity. The day you understand this is the day anxiety stops being the prison and becomes the path.
Peace is not found by running away from the feelings that disturb you, nor is it created by hiding behind distractions that only delay what must be faced. True peace does not come from escaping anxiety, but from listening closely to what it is trying to tell you. Every moment of discomfort is not simply pain for the sake of pain. It is a form of wisdom, a subtle teacher that appears in the language of unease. Instead of fearing it, you can begin to approach it with curiosity. When the tightness in your chest, the restless thoughts, or the waves of nervous energy rise within you, ask yourself, what is this pointing to? What part of my life feels out of balance? What choice have I avoided? What truth have I denied? Anxiety is rarely random. It is most often an inner signal that the way you are living is in conflict with what your deeper self knows is right for you. Most people spend their lives trying to silence anxiety with noise. They distract themselves with endless scrolling, constant activity, or artificial escapes that never last. But these things cannot erase the message. They only push it further down. Eventually the pressure returns with more strength. That is why the path to peace is not about covering the noise, but about listening more deeply. The courage to pause, to sit with the discomfort, to let it speak, is the doorway to understand. Anxiety is like an inner alarm that will not stop ringing until you finally look at the fire it points to. The wisdom hidden in discomfort often shows itself in pattern. Perhaps you notice that your unease rises most strongly in certain environments, or when you are with certain people, or when you are making choices that betray your values. Each of these patterns reveals something important. The unease is not punishing you. It is guiding you away from what drains your spirit and pushing you toward what nourishes it. For example, someone who feels anxious in a relationship where they cannot be themselves is not being told by their body to collapse, but to step away from what suffocates them. Someone who feels restless in work that lacks meaning is not broken. They are being shown that their energy belongs somewhere else. When you learn to listen, you begin to realize that discomfort is not weakness, but guidance. Instead of thinking, why am I like this? You begin to ask, what is this showing me about who I really am? The fear, the racing thoughts, the sleepless nights, all point to truths you have ignored. They might be truths about your needs, your values, or your hidden dreams. By facing them, you slowly move closer to the life that feels real. And every step closer reduces the weight of anxiety, because you are no longer living against yourself. Peace, then, is not the absence of discomfort, but the presence of alignment. When your actions match your values, when your choices reflect your authentic needs, you may still face challenges, but they no longer feel like prisons. They become part of a path you have chosen, not a cage you were forced into. That difference changes everything. You might still feel pressure, but it will be the kind of pressure that shapes you, not the kind that suffocates you. This is why silence is so powerful in the process. In silence, the noise of the world fades, and the whispers of truth grow loud. Anxiety thrives in distraction, because distraction keeps you from hearing its wisdom. But in quiet reflection, you can begin to see clearly where the unease is pointing. Maybe it is pointing toward healthier habits, Maybe toward boundaries with people who take too much. Maybe toward a path you have been afraid to admit you want. The answers are already inside you. The discomfort is simply guiding you toward them. To ignore this guidance is to prolong suffering. To listen is to open the door to peace. Listening does not mean everything changes instantly. Sometimes the life that truly belongs to you requires patience, small steps, gradual adjustments. But even small steps reduce the inner conflict, because you are at least moving in the right direction. That movement brings relief. It tells your deeper self, I hear you and I am willing to honor you. That is what anxiety has been asking for all along. It is easy to think that peace is found in external achievements or in creating a perfect environment. But peace is born when there is no war inside you. When the person you are on the inside is not at odds with the person you are pretending to be on the outside. Calmness becomes natural. Every moment of discomfort, when embraced, pushes you closer to this harmony. Each wave of anxiety, when understood, teaches you how to adjust your course. In this way, anxiety becomes less of a curse and more of a compass. It guides you through the false paths until you reach the one that truly fits. Peace is not something you chase. It is something you allow to emerge when you stop resisting your truth. It arrives when you are no longer hiding from yourself. And that is why every moment of unease, every restless thought carries within it a hidden gift, the wisdom to guide you back home. When you begin to live this way, peace is no longer fragile. It does not depend on everything around you being perfect. It grows from the inside, rooted in the trust that you are walking in alignment with who you are. That is a peace no storm can destroy, because it is not built on escape, but on truth. That is the gift anxiety has been offering you all along, if only you choose to listen.